Hey everyone, this episode is with Jacquelyn Strickland. We met in 2015 during one of her gatherings in Germany at the time, and we touched upon various topics in this episode, like motherhood, advocating for your child, the movement, and much more. I will read Jacquelyn's bio aloud, and here it is. It's nice that everybody has such a different bio. I'm really enjoying this. So Jacquelyn has been married since 1978 to an introvert who is part of the other 80%, and she's a proud mother and grandmother. Her older son is an HSP, and her younger son, most likely, a tulip. She is the grandmother of 3 delightful grandchildren, ages 3, 4, and 6. One granddaughter is almost certainly a sensitive extrovert like her grandmother. So Jacquelyn has been a licensed professional counselor since 1993, having worked exclusively with highly sensitive people since 2000. She's one of the very first pioneers, with Elaine Aron, of what is now an international movement connecting HSPs around the world. Jacquelyn and Elaine co-founded the HSP Gathering Retreats since 2001, and there have been 36, and counting, national and international retreats. And we will be celebrating this 37th retreat as soon as it is safe to gather, and possibly we will gather virtually as well. So Jacquelyn has a background in social work, women's studies, cultural diversity, and a graduate degree in counseling. And it has all empowered and informed her work since first finding out about our HSP trait in May of 1996. Her psychotherapy practice included therapeutic orientations, coaching principles, mixed with a client's spiritual foundation. She has been trained in hypnotherapy and loved her work as an EMDR Level 2 practitioner. She has been certified to utilize Myers Briggs Personality Assessment since 1991. It's very interesting. And is also well versed in the use of the Enneagram, using both of these modalities when helpful in her work. She now connects with highly sensitive people around the world as an HSP mentor, coach, educator, and retreat and workshop leader, including the HSP Gathering Retreats and her nature as teacher and healer retreats held in beautiful Colorado, where she lives. She's an expert on sensory processing sensitivity, which is high sensitivity, and a member of the ICHS, the International Consultants High Sensitivity, a group of international professionals trained by Elaine Aron in 2018. Connect with Jacquelyn at her website or on her Facebook page, and you can sign up for her newsletter, and I will give you the link in the comments and also above on social media. So enjoy this episode with Jacquelyn Strickland. So who would have thought that we would be sitting here after 2015, attending your gathering in Germany at the time? I just knew. I knew at the time. I don't know why, but I knew I had to go there. Do you remember that I told you?
Yes, I remember that very well. Yes, and I'm so glad you did. That was a very different and special retreat, actually.
Yeah. And I know I was late. I was in traffic from the Netherlands to Germany at the time. Yeah, but I really appreciated it, and it was also very special because the morning after I shared about the HSP Village when I did the presentation, which was not planned, but you got me over that obstacle, that hurdle to do it. The bird, the swallow, flew into the room. Do you remember?
Yes,
That was really special.
that was really special. And I loved that Annette shared the meaning, the animal totem, the swallow. It so matched the energy in the room and
Yeah,
the whole atmosphere and the whole experience. It was so amazing. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And I was also happily surprised to see several men attending.
Yes, there
Yeah,
were quite a few men at that one.
yeah, yeah. So that was really nice.
I think the most men we've ever had at an HSP gathering was 8, and it
What
was quite
country?
nice. And but quite frankly, and people might tell me differently, but gender didn't seem to impact um, our experience at all. It sort of felt we were just all HSPs. But I do know that each of us have a unique, different challenge being in the world as a highly sensitive person, and we each have our own way to manifest it and um, care for our traits. So everybody's different.
Yeah. In what country was it that the 8 men attended?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember which one. It was the U.S. For sure. Uh, but Sweden also had quite a few men. So yeah, there have been men to show up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a really nice experience that you can go really deep in a positive way within a few days with other HSPs, and you just have to experience that to know what it is like. So I know you're already doing this for so many years. Uh,
Yes.
how
Again,
long?
like it was the HSP gatherings really, they came to me in a vision in 2000. And it was just really sort of a gift to me that comes through me. I never sat down and said, I think I'm going to create a gathering. They just came to me in this vision in the wilderness. And so it really was like a gift.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice that the visual behind you really looks like the forest at the time.
It does. I remember the forest in Germany. It was really similar to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, within the gatherings, when you attend, you go from the external to the internal experience. And what do you notice when people come in the first day? Um, how
Well,
the
actually, that internal and external listening is pretty much more from my observation and work with highly sensitive people exclusively since actually 2000. So, wow, what is that, 20 years? Is I've noticed that we all, whether we're HSPs or not, but it specifically applies to we highly sensitive people, we grow up in the dominant culture, and we're very good at, we want to be nice, we want to be kind, we want to do well in school, we want to please our parents, and so we do. And it's a process of external listening, and we internalize a lot of values from dominant culture and a lot of negative beliefs. And so many of us have tried to fit into the other 80%. And so when that eventually fails, or I've seen it over and over again. That's when most people came to me for counseling or therapy, and I would always say, much to their surprise, "Welcome to the world of highly sensitive people." I was so excited, and they were feeling like it was the end of the world. And I'm like, "No, you're on a new journey now, where you're going to start doing interior listening to your inner self." So it's kind of a journey. But the HSP gatherings, since you ask, we arrive on a Thursday, and Thursday night, everyone is introverting. It's so quiet. Everyone's measuring each word they're going to say when they introduce themselves or they pass. And by the end of the second day, you really can't tell who's an introvert and who's an extrovert, because everybody is extroverting as if it were a verb, because we've already gone deep in that time. And it's just a thrill to see HSPs sort of coming alive over 4 days. And most of my retreats seem to inspire people to and empower people to go home and start their own HSP meetings, meetups, writing a book. I mean, I've had several people from my retreats that have gone on to do exciting things. So it's really, I feel really grateful and blessed about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very important work that you do.
Thank you. As well as you, Suzanne. My goodness, you've been doing this for many years and reaching hundreds of HSPs. And so, yay, kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's so many things I would like to discuss. Where to start? Sometimes
Well, first start with telling me what is the name of your men's summit that you're doing? What's the title?
It's the Global Highly Sensitive Men's Summit Experience, because after the release of the videos in 2 days, we have a sort of after party where all the participants come together and can answer the questions of the people that are interested. And the same is for Sunday. So in this way, I want to make it inclusive. It's not just for adult men, which has a strong message, but also for women to hear how they can support our sensitive men and sons, and also for our sensitive youth. So I would say 16 and up. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, okay, great, great. So, yeah, wonderful that you're pulling men together and highlighting highly sensitive men. And I think I told you earlier, it reminds me of, if I think probably the oldest living highly sensitive man might be Robert Bly, who wrote the book Iron John. And he led basically the men's movement throughout the 80s and into the 90s. And he's now 96. And I'm hoping your Global Summit for Highly Sensitive Men, I would love to see men re-energize a men's movement. We need men so much to come together and advocate for themselves and speak out for men and their diversity. And so it's exciting what you're doing, bringing these men and people together too.
Yeah, yeah. And I love I read that you have 2 sons, and you said one is an orchid child and one is a tulip.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And Elaine Aron says that if an HSP is raised in a quote good enough environment, that you often can't tell who the HSP in adult life because they've sort of found a unique niche. And so that would be true of my orchid son, who's older. And the only way you would know that he's a highly sensitive person, if if you didn't know him, was his periodic breakdowns when he is totally overstimulated and he's doing too much with his job and is raising his 2 young girls. He loves being a father. He's the most caring, kind, fun, creative father who plays dress up with his girls. They're 4 and 6. And so, he'll often call me, not too often, but every so often you can tell he's having this breakdown. And my first question to him is, so how have you been sleeping? When have you had any time alone? I haven't, Mom, I haven't, okay? And so it's just sort of this joke. It's really not a joke, but
Yeah.
self-care is crucial. And otherwise he does okay with his trait.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes when we speak about the HSP world, and um, when people ask me, well, are your both of your sons highly sensitive? And it's just like when you say that, like you said, a tulip child, that you have to add to the response that no, not highly sensitive, but definitely sensitive, good intuition. But yeah, it's like you have to say that, but he has wonderful values. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I do. And kindness and compassion are 2 values that I think our family has instilled, and I see it in our children as well. Um, and those are pretty much genderless values. However, as we know, um, there's that boy code that we talk about that Ted Zeff first talked about. The boy code is the men are supposed to be strong and know everything and never show weakness, and they're supposed to like sports, and they're supposed to be tough, and they're supposed to get in there and tackle that person. I remember my oldest son tried football because he wanted to, and his mother wasn't too thrilled about it, but he was very bright. He was tall. So the coach put him in as quarterback. And, when you're in sixth grade, you don't have much of a defense. So he would get the ball and get tackled, get the ball and get, they call it sacked, 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 sacked. And I could tell that he hurt himself on one time. And he was saying to the coach, I've hurt my finger. And the coach was going, come on, Strickland, you can do it. And I thought to myself, no, he can't, because this is sixth grade. He has no defense. He has no chance of succeeding as a quarterback. And so I went to the coach and I said, pull my son out. He's been sacked 6 times. He's not, I just said, pull him out. And the coach was not happy with me. And I insisted very assertively. And my son came out. And after the game at home, my son said, I don't like football, Mom. And the coach, he doesn't even know my name. He just calls me Strickland. And I was so supportive of him. And um, so anyway, he likes to watch football now, but he never played it. So
Yeah. And
yay for his mother who said take him out of the game. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And what was it like for you as a highly sensitive mother, extrovert, um, to advocate for your highly sensitive son?
Well, for me, just like the men's movement was so important for so many people, the women's movement was so important for me in the early 70s. And so people say to me often, wow, you seem so strong as a highly sensitive person. And, it doesn't seem to bother you at all. Well, they should have seen me before the women's movement when I wasn't assertive, when I was um, felt very oppressed, when I measured my every word, when I was following a girl code, which was be smart, but not too smart, be thin, but not too thin, be pretty, but not too pretty. The whole girl code that we go through. Um, don't rock the boat, don't say what you really think and feel. So the women's movement really empowered me and gave me a great number of tools, assertiveness for one, conflict resolution for another. So when I found out about the HSP trait, it was all the beautiful things about, am I nurtured in nature and near water? Am I deeply moved by the arts and music? Am I uniquely spiritual? Do I have time to process my day? And so the answers to all those questions were yes, because I had already been practicing it for 12 years through the women's movement. So um, it wasn't hard for me to assert myself. And I had already worked through the backlash that we women, and perhaps men too now, if you're coming out as a highly sensitive person, you're going to experience some backlash or some negativity about, oh, I can't believe she said that. Or, I'm sure the coach was like, oh, I can't believe this mother is telling me what to do. But yes, she was, and she had every right to do so. So, I learned a lot of tools and confidence through the women's movement, which has helped me incredibly do the work I do at
Yeah.
the gatherings and advocating for highly sensitive people.
Yeah. Yeah, you created your own code in that way.
Yes, well, yes, and that's the whole point of, I think, my work is to help us all to go on our own journey. As I said in the documentary, Sensitive, the Untold Story, it's sort of our own unique spiritual journey that we're on. And I guide clients, introduce them to that, guide them along, and then we never really arrive, but I think eventually we do become those priestly advisors who are wise and who have strong values and who are visionaries. And many times we go back into the dominant culture, the one that sort of we allowed to marginalize us. And many times, I know for myself, you go back into that culture as a teacher and healer. So I've seen that happen so many times with the work I've done with clients, and seeing an empowered HSP is just brings my heart alive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Shall I share a quote that you sent me?
Sure. I think it kind of speaks to what I felt about my involvement with the women's movement, because before the women's movement, it was this message that women are, oh, these quotes that you're talking about. Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I love these about culture.
Yeah. Should I read it aloud?
Yeah, please.
So it's a wonderful visual from Jacquelyn. So never underestimate the power of culture to devalue, discourage, or marginalize your authentic self. Never underestimate your own power to reclaim your authentic self. Jacquelyn Strickland.
Yay.
Yeah.
And there's another one about how our family influences us too. And when I was speaking about the backlash or the negative reactions, that when we do rock the boat, men or women, and change the status quo, challenge the status quo, we will get, some negative feedback until everyone adapts
Yeah.
to the evolving authentic person in front of them. So I like that family meme too. Can you share that?
Of course. Here. So, okay. No matter what it looks like from the outside, never underestimate the power of family or friends to devalue, discourage, or marginalize your authentic self. Never underestimate your own power to reclaim your authentic self. Jacquelyn Strickland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for reading those.
Yeah, they're lovely. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So I understand the culture influences us all so much, especially as highly sensitive. What can you say about, because your retreats are in various countries and various continents. What do you notice about the cultures? What is something that you would like to share about men in well, maybe start in the U.S. culture?
That's kind of a difficult question to answer, because if we were doing research, my N would be so small with the men. But I have found, as far as cultures and highly sensitive people, that, we all express in different ways the D.O.E.S, depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional responsiveness and intensity, and sensitive to subtleties. So, um, and each gathering is different, but for most of them, um, not all, um, some of them, I have not been my best self, either due to overstimulation or bringing issues that I was dealing with, whatever. But there is a sense of joy and freedom and love that just shines forth, um, despite culture or gender.
Yeah, yeah, I really I like that you address. I know you also like Brene Brown's work because
Yes.
you talk the walk and walk the talk during the gatherings. Because at the time you were vulnerable and saying that um, you were also tired. Of course, you traveled all from the US to Germany
Yes.
at the time, and in that way, all of the participants were able to be more vulnerable and open, and it was respectful to yourself, but also to the participants at the time.
Yeah, I think role modeling authenticity is
Yeah.
not always easy, but it's not even a choice for me anymore. So I kind of laugh though, about this one gathering in particular. I was rather vulnerable for a lot of reasons, and out of I always do get evaluations back, and so out of this one gathering, I had most of them were like, "Oh, this was so freeing. You were so authentic. I appreciate what you shared with us is my life has changed and I'll never be the same. And this was the most a turning point in my life, this gathering. And out of 30 evaluations, there was one that said, this person should not be doing these retreats. She is too emotional and she's too unprofessional and she shouldn't be sharing her any personal situations. And I just thought, wow, same gathering, different reactions from different people. So thank goodness I've learned to about the negativity bias and how I could focus on the one negative if I chose to, but thank goodness I've learned how not to do that. So, but learn from, I always learn from the evaluations too. So
Yeah, yeah. But it's nice when people sometimes just model it so that other people also feel free to do so.
yes, yes. And that's what I want to encourage men to do, young men in particular, is, get do a serious investigation into culture and what culture has told you about yourself and what negative beliefs you've internalized and reframe those so that you can show up, as a role model for other men. And I was working with a family once, and the two children, one was definitely an orchid, the other child was definitely a dandelion. And in private, the orchid child said to me, he showed me pictures of angels that he drew, and he kept them hidden in his box because he didn't want his family to see his angels. And oh my gosh, that was before I knew about the HSP trait, actually. And I was so moved by that. And it's so important to validate this young boy and his sensitivity and his compassion and his spirituality at such a young age. And luckily, I was able, with his permission, to share with his parents his drawings. And of course, it was, negotiating, working out the dandelion's response to that, which was not very kind. Um, but hopefully that family grew in that situation.
Yeah. What was key in guiding this family?
Well, I think just making them aware of differences and how and that and in honoring differences, it makes a greater whole. And even in my own family, my strengths are my husband's weaknesses and his strengths are my weaknesses. And so, gosh, when we can honor that, it's like one plus one equals four sometimes instead of just two. So that family, I think, learned about differences and um, how to honor and negotiate conflicts and needs.
Yeah. Yeah, especially expressing what you need. That's what you also spoke about during the gatherings. That you have to tell people what it is that you need.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And first comes to focus on your own needs, identify them. And my little motto at the gatherings, I think you might remember, focus on needs, not approval. And then trust your own process. And for me, this is a daily thing, and I imagine it is for you too, Suzanne, around this idea of trusting your process throughout the day and having moments to think, okay, where am I in my process? What am I thinking, feeling, needing right in this moment, especially if something comes up that disturbs my nervous system. It's an invitation to stop and say, okay, I'm trusting my process, but what can I learn in this moment right now? And most importantly, what do I need in this moment? So sometimes it takes, separating myself and being alone to figure that out. And if I couldn't, even at the gatherings, I've done it. And I've either gone to my room or gone to the bathroom and sat there and said, okay, what is it that I can learn from what just happened? And what do I need in order to feel authentic? And so I love those mottos: focus on needs, not approval, trust your process, always asking, what is there for me to learn in this moment? And most importantly, what do I need in this moment? And then not being afraid to um, share your authentic self
Yeah. And act on it.
and act on it. Yes. And be prepared for, some possible negative backlash. Just prepare for it because you will get it and you can work through it. And um, yeah.
Yeah. So what is your reaction now in this phase of your life when you get negative um, like backlash, like you said?
Yeah, in this phase of my life, I have certainly had many decades of working on this. So um, I came across a quote. I don't know if it was a quote. It was just it's something I was reading, and it said, when you receive critical feedback, ask yourself if you value the way this person is living their life, if you value the way who they are as a person, and would you ever go to them for advice? So how I deal with it now is if I really respect the person, then I'm curious and I hope to have a dialogue, um, which might be, wow, I noticed that your face kind of made a negative reaction when I was sharing something. What is that about? If I don't really put much credence in the person who's giving feedback, then I just sort of let it go. And
Yeah, you're a true sage, like you said.
well, I think age certainly makes us a sage, and also life experiences. And I have Suzanne taken on that title sage. One, because of my age, I'll be 72 in October. I've been married for 43 years. I've raised two children. I have three grandchildren. I've lost both my parents to death, all my grandparents. I've been through a lot of life's journeys. So, as I have said many times, and it's in my book that is Writing Me, that you know about, um, I think one of the first sentences is going to be from M. Scott Peck's book, The Road Less Traveled, which was a book that really was profound for me in the 90s, or late 80s, I think it was. His first sentence was, "Life is difficult." And I remember thinking, wow, here's an MD finally validating for me my whole life experience. Thank God somebody else thinks it's difficult. And I do think it's difficult, and I do think it's also beautiful. So we just need to do our own work and
Yeah,
have great self-compassion for ourselves and others, and
yeah,
speak out. And I love Elaine Aron's closing remarks in the video or the film, Sensitive and Told Story, which she's talking about. We're going through very uncertain times now, confusing times where there's not a lot of answers and something like that. And she says, so I beg of you, dear ages, please speak out. We need you. So I love that. And that's what I wish for young boys, young girls, for families who allow these voices of strength to be heard and not ridiculed. Or, um,
yeah, exactly. Be heard and not be ridiculed.
yes, not be put back in a box of gender or right or wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Yes, thank
please
you.
tell me, tell about the book. What is it about? What is the
It's
journey?
about this. Yeah, it's about the spiritual journey that I talk about in the film of highly sensitive people and what I've observed about how we begin, how we get off mainstream highway and exit our own unique exit. You've exited many years ago. I exited back during the women's movement, got off mainstream values, which were not mine, sought my own out, and then it's about this journey that we're on, what to expect, some tips for. It's a little bit of preaching, it's a little bit of tools, it's a little bit of strategies, it's a little bit of healing, it's a little bit of honoring grief, uh, just the journey that we are, that is very, I think, similar yet different for all of us.
Yeah, like life.
Like life, yeah, like life.
Well, thank you so much for all that you do. You are making a wonderful difference in the world, and
Thank you,
more than
Suzanne. I
20
appreciate that.
years. So I know it's not easy to um, because people normally don't think about this. You're organizing gatherings, and it sounds wonderful to travel to different countries, but it's also it has quite an impact on your personal life because traveling as an HSP is. Uh, has.
Yes. And believe me, I have, you see all these articles about 15 ways to travel for HSPs and 15 ways to avoid burnout and overwhelm. Believe me, I know all of them and I've been practicing all of them. And I always, spend days and days preparing and days of getting a lot of sleep. Always plan for rest afterwards. Always ask for help. Always delegate when I can. And the joy of doing them has outweighed the intense work that's involved. And I generally have several volunteers who come forward and help me with a lot of the details and things. So yeah, as far as I know, I'll keep doing them until my body um, says no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for all the effort for all our highly sensitives. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Suzanne. And I look forward to the summit and to your influence in the world as you continue with your important work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.